Alright, so as someone who has just entered the steel path, I feel I am now fit to make this guide. This is a super beginner guide for all the interested and new players. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Before I get into the game, let me first give you a brief rundown. Warframe is a free-to-play game where you play as a space ninja and fight your way through the solar system. There are a ton of different Warframes, or frames for short, alongside a very wide variety of weapons and quests you can do. There is loads of content throughout the game. The best part is you don't have to pay for any of it. Anyways, if you're first starting out, it could be overwhelming. You have mods, mod capacity, forma, Origin Cell, Catalyst, Mastery, Rank Affinity, Foundry, Resource Farming, Clans, Clan Research, Warframes, Primary, Secondary, Melee, and Exalted Weapons, Companions, Relics, Standing, Bounties, Syndicates, you get the point. I'm here today to turn all of that into an in-depth guide for anyone interested or even someone just discovering Warframe, and if so, welcome. The community is one of the better ones in the gaming community, in my opinion. When you load into a fresh game, you get the choice between 3 different starting Warframes: Excalibur, Mag, and Volt. Each one has a unique set of abilities, including a passive alongside 4 main abilities, the 4th being every frame's ultimate ability. Now, as to which of these 3 you should pick, the best part about it is it doesn't matter. You can play all 3 eventually. I recommend you do. They're all good Warframes, each one is strong in their own way, so I'd say choose who you find most interesting. If you like the strong, melee-focused gameplay, I'd go with Excalibur. If you like huge nuking potential and strong crowd control, I'd go with Mag. If you like fast-paced and an all-around kit, I'd go with Volt. If you still can't choose who you want to play, one last deciding factor might be how you acquire each one of these frames. Every frame in the game has their own unique quest or challenge that unlocks the different pieces that make up a frame. Excalibur can be obtained pretty early on doing the assassination mission on Mars. Mag can be obtained completing the assassin mission on Phobos. Now for Volt, it varies. He can only be obtained through a clan that has his blueprints researched already. So if you can join a clan that has him available already, you can get him from day one. But if you'd have to make your own clan, you'd have to start from scratch. Now we're getting into the part of the game that might get a little intimidating. Not to worry, it's a lot more simple than it looks. To start off, your account level is represented by your mastery rank, or your MR. The way you increase your mastery rank is by leveling up frames, weapons, companions, and so on and so forth. Each one of these will start out as unranked. As you get kills, therefore affinity, each one will level up to the max rank, being 30 most of the time. Each time they level up, you get affinity towards your mastery rank in the form of MR points. Warframe's companions and the Archwing all give 200 MR points per level towards your mastery rank, or 6,000 MR points from unranked to rank 30. Weapons give 100 MR points per level, or 3,000 towards your MR from unranked to level 30. When you start a new account, you start at mastery rank 0. It only takes 2,500 MR points to get to mastery rank 1, meaning before you're even halfway through leveling up your starter frame, you'll reach mastery rank 1. There is a rank up challenge, however it's different every time, usually increasing in difficulty. You have 3 tries or lives before you have to retry the rank up challenge. Thankfully, you can retry the challenge as many times as you want, which I only recently found out coming back to the game. Back in my day, you could only try once every 24 hours, so if you used your 3 lives and failed your rank up challenge, you'd have to wait until the same time the next day in order to try again, which thankfully they changed. Now you might be asking, why would I care about my mastery rank? Well, it gives you a few perks. For one, some weapons require a mastery rank to craft or use it. It increases the amount of standing you can get per day, which I'll explain more later on. You get more loadout slots so you can save more builds, and much more you won't have to worry about until mid-game. Now, to get into a huge part of Warframe, obtaining resources and crafting. Different planets give different resources. Some are obtained passively, somewhat from enemy drops, and others you have to do more specific work for. Again, I wouldn't worry too much about those. If you're just starting out, you can check out what resources an area has to offer by either using the Warframe Wiki or selecting the planet you're curious about and then selecting the resource drone. Foundry is the part of your orbiter that lets you access every blueprint you own. It tells you what resources you need to craft alongside how long it takes. Now about that, the biggest downside of Warframe are the crafting times. It can vary from the small things taking a minute to the bigger things like full Warframes taking 3 days. Yeah, you heard that right, a full 72 hours. No, don't run away just yet. In my personal experience, the crafting time hasn't been too much of a hassle. There's so much to do in Warframe that if you decide to craft in bulk, let's say 3 Warframes and a few weapons at a time, you can easily keep occupied doing missions or the main story, or all while you wait for your crafts to finish. And once you get them, you can start a whole new wave of builds while you level up your new frames and progress throughout the game. There is never a time where you'll be stuck with nothing to do. Now, farming for Warframes, every Warframe has 5 components: the actual blueprints for the frame, then the 3 components that make up the frame, including the neuroptics, chassis, and system, and then an Origin Cell. The parts individually are what you farm for. They take 12 hours to craft. Once you have all 3 crafted and in a working cell, you can then use the main blueprint and craft the frame as a whole. Every planet will have an assassination mission on it, which is basically a boss fight, and each one has a different Warframe part drop chance. To go back to my example with the starting frames, if you want to farm for max parts, you'd have to do the assassination on Phobos. Once you defeat the boss, they have a chance of dropping one of the 3 parts, either mags, neuroptics, chassis, or system. Sometimes you'll get duplicates, but that's alright, just go back in and beat the boss again, and eventually you'll get all the parts you need. You can get her main blueprint right from the shop. You only need credits. Credits are this game's free currency that you get passively from various different sources. Weapon blueprints are a lot easier. There are many ways to get those as well. You can get one from killing a certain enemy, and most of the time it just takes simple resources to start crafting them. And for most it only takes 12 hours to craft. Some do require parts like Warframes do, but the good news is there's no crafting the parts than the weapon. You get the handle and then the blade of a sword, for example, and then you just use those to craft the whole thing. That usually only comes around later in the mid game. Again, I can't stress it enough. Use the Warframe Wiki if you need more in-depth and detailed descriptions on a weapon and Warframe you want. The Warframe community is far from niche and often gives a ton of support. I highly recommend using it as often as you need. I'll even link it in the description of this video. There are separate versions of some frames and weapons called primes. Prime weapons and warframes are basically the base thing, but on steroids. They have the same abilities, but their stats will be higher, and 9 times out of 10 they look a lot cooler too. In order to get these primes, you need to open up relics. Relics are these cool spaceball things that are basically a gacha system on a mini scale. There is a way to upgrade them to better the odds of getting the rare item, but I'll explain that a little later on in this segment. You usually passively get relics as you do missions, however there are better mission types to get them more frequently. These being survival, defense, excavation, disruption, and a few other more specific cases. Like certain void missions, if done right, can basically be sped ran through to get relics pretty fast. However, I'd say the best way to get endless relics by far is by doing excavation missions. There are some different types of void relics and they vary in rarity. The relics from common to the rarest are Lith, Meso, Neo, and Axii. There is another type called Requiem relics, however that is far more late mid game to early end game, so I wouldn't worry about those for now. In order to open these relics, you need to do void fissure missions. There will be a tab in the top right hand of your navigation chart where you'll be able to see all of the events and special missions you unlock as you progress throughout the game. This is where you can find the currently available void fissure missions. They rotate and change about every hour. I'd recommend excavation as the best way to farm for relics, so if you see one available, I highly recommend you do those. The endless mission types are good for opening relics the same way they are good for getting them. Excavation just so happens to be the fastest one out of all of them. There are different types of void fissures as well that match all the different kinds of relics. So let's say you have a Lith relic and you want to open, you'd have to find a Lith void fissure mission. Again, preferably some sort of endless mission type so that you can open them back to back. There is an outlier, Omnia void fissures. These let you open up all of the base relics besides the Requiem ones. So if you're ever trying to farm your relics and you have any sort of Omnia endless mission, like an Omnia excavation, you'll be able to farm any relic you want as efficiently as possible. There are some exceptions. Some primes are in what's called the Prime Vault. In short, in order to keep the prime pool fresh, every time they add a new prime, one gets added to the vault. Not to worry, if there is a prime you want and one of their parts is in the prime vault, there are always ways to get them. There is a section of the shop that rotates out weekly, and you can just buy the prime you want with an in-game resource called Aya, which you can obtain through void missions, relics, bounties, and a few other niche ways. You can also trade with others as well. For instance, when I farmed my Gauss prime, I had access to all of his parts but one, which was his chassis. Oddly, it was the only part of his prime in the vault. However, I got lucky. As I mentioned in my previous video, I have in my older account that is a few years older than the main one I play now. I logged on and I saw that I had relics containing his chassis. I was able to get a hold of them before they went into the prime vault. There is another method that I'll touch on later. But as you can see, if you just stumble across a player who has vaulted prime parts or relics, you can always just ask to trade with them, same way I did with my old account and my new one. Now, like I mentioned earlier, there are ways to make your relics more lucky, increasing your chances of getting the rare item. As you do these void fissure missions I've just mentioned, you will passively gain these things called void traces. You can use these void traces up to 100 to maximize your luck out of a relic. We've discussed the leveling system, crafting, weapons, frames, and nether prime counterparts. To get to probably the most important aspect of the game. Modding. Modding is what can turn a mediocre weapon into an S-tier steel path destroyer. To put simply, a bad gun with good mods will outperform a great gun with poor mods. Mods can change every aspect of your frame, weapons, companions, archwing, and so on and so forth. Most common mods are dropped passively throughout missions, while some are obtained through specific means. There are Umbra mods, which you'll get going down the story, Primes mods, which you'll get from a guy named Baro Katir, who pops up every 2 weeks and rotates out the mods available. Corrupted mods, which are acquired through special vaults and vault keys on Deimos. And last but definitely not least, galvanized mods, which you get from arboration vendors using vital essence that you get while doing arboration missions. I wouldn't worry too much about these yet. Most of these come on later in the game. Do let me know if you guys would want a deep dive on all of these different mod types, the specialized ones I'm talking about, and if you'd want a deep dive on how to get each and every single one of them. You can level up all of these mods using Endo. You get Endo passively throughout missions, though not a lot, and through any of the endless missions as a reward in hitting a milestone. A chance to get them every 5 minutes in survival, every few rounds in defense, every time you excavate in an excavation mission, and a few others. Each mod takes up a base amount of space that increases by 1 each time you level it up. There are a few determining factors that affect how much mod space you have for your frames, weapons, and etc. As I explained before, the majority of weapons and frames have a max rank of 30. That rank determines how much mod capacity you have for your weapons, or frames, and all these other things. For instance, a level 30 weapon will have 30 capacity. There is a cool system in place where if you have a gun that's unranked, but you're mastery rank 10, let's just say that, your gun will start with 10 capacity, even though it's unranked. It doesn't stack, so the gun will just not gain capacity up until level 10. You just have a little head start to mod it a little bit, so you're not fighting for your life when it's unranked and you can put like 1 mod on it, not even. Now, I know what you're saying. But what about those mods that have 11 or more mod capacity? Will I only be able to use 3 mods at max rank? Fear not, baby Tenno. There are these things called Orokin Catalysts that can be equipped to your Warframes, or Orokin Reactors, which is the weapon counterpart. You get these from the night market. It is a one-time use and it doubles your mod capacity, meaning you can have a max of 16 mod capacity. I say use these wisely, they're hard to come by, so make sure to use them on frames and weapons you know you'll be using mainly majority of the time. There is an aura slot for frames and a stance slot for melee weapons. Installing an aura or a stance mod increases your mod capacity a little bit more as well. Now, there are these special slots with these cool looking symbols in the top right corner. You randomly get them when you get a new weapon and you can add them on later as well. Every mod has a type which is also located on the top right hand. If you match the symbols from the mod in the mod slot, it halves the amount of mod capacity it takes up. So, a mod that normally takes 12 mod capacity would only take 6, if it's in the matching spot. These are called polarized slots, or a slot with polarity. All of these factors combined are what make up a great weapon and Warframe builds. If you want a deep dive on polarization and other modding tips, leave a like on the video. There are 2 types of syndicates. The 6 syndicates you'll find access to in your orbiter, and then the syndicates you'll find on different planet hubs, like Cetus on Earth. Syndicates are a great way to access Warframe and weapon-specific mods, alongside some other specific resources you might want or need. The Syndicate runs on a standing system. Think of it as your street cred. There's a daily limit of how much standing you can get per day that increases with your mastery rank. There are different levels of standing you can have with the Syndicate. You always start off as neutral, then progress your way up 5 ranks for a total of 6 ranks. However, the 6 syndicates in your orbiter are a little different. There are 2 negative levels, aka bad standing. The 6 syndicates in your orbiter have a rivalry with one another, but also allies, so if you pledge to one and you work to get your standing up with them, you'll also get a little bit of standing with their ally, but they also usually have 2 others that are negative, like they don't like each other, so when you get standing with one, you gain standing with another. One is always going to be neutral as well, and then the other 2 are going to decrease, which is where you get into those 2 negative ranks. But fear not, you can always get them back by switching your pledge over to them once you have whatever you want from the other syndicate. The way you get standing in the syndicates on your orbiter is by pledging to one of them and then just playing the game. Your standing just increases with the affinity you get from missions, so you can do literally anything as long as you're getting affinity for it. Now, in order to progress throughout these levels, you have to get the max amount of standing for that level, and once you get to the level cap for that stage, you have to contribute some sort of resource. It's usually not that bad. Now, for the syndicates on the planets, those don't work the same way as they do on the orbiter. You will not get passive standing through affinity gain gain in missions. You don't have to pledge to them either. There are bounties on every planet, and usually completing those bounties will get you standing up, with a few odd cases like the family on Deimos, where you have to get tokens and then trade those in for standing, but it's basically the same system. Every planet will have their own sort of system as well, besides the bounty that usually gives more. Have to look at whatever planet you want to get standing with, and if you want to do it faster than the bounties, which I think are fine on their own, you can just look it up. Now that we're reaching the end, we've gone over the basics, I wanted to throw in some useful tips. There's a night market, also found on your orbiter. It's basically a free battle pass that you earn points for from doing missions. They're listed with the battle pass, and most of them get completed passively while you play. It has a separate market where you can get valuable resources. It rotates its goods every once in a while, and the currency you use to buy things from it is also earned from the same battle pass. Next up, the Warframe Wikipedia. Warframe has a huge community. The wiki has a ton of information for just about everything. Again, I highly suggest you use it whenever you have a question about anything. Last but not least, the Warframe Market. It's its own website where you can list a tradable item for platinum, the game's premium paid for currency. You can look up a part you want, maybe a vaulted prime someone has, and buy it with platinum. You can also list something you want to sell. A lot of people never spend $1 in this game. They just grind for a rare and valuable resource and then sell them to others for a good amount of platinum. That'll be it for now. I hope you guys were able to take something away from all of this. Please do tell me your thoughts on the video. This is my first time with this format, so I don't expect it to be anywhere near perfect. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.